Hello, I am Reverend Irene Smith, and I'd like to welcome you to Generationally Speaking. Here at the table, we come and we discuss life issues, no matter what they might be. As we sit at the table with each generation, we all learn, we all grow, we all are inspired.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Generationally Speaking. Hello, I am Reverend Irene Smith, and I'd like to welcome you back again to Generationally Speaking. We are continuing our conversation, this rich conversation that we're having with Karen Baker. Again, I want to remind you about her book, God's Plan. You can go ahead and get it from Amazon. It's an awesome book, an awesome read. And when I started reading it, I could not put it down. It is so good. I hear you. I hear you. You want me to get to the conversation, but let me first introduce my co-host, Minister James Durham. You know him as that cowboy fan. He is a mentor to young men and young boys of all ages, using the Nehemiah principle to rebuild their lives. Minister Durham, how you doing?
Doing well, Reverend. Always a pleasure to be here with you.
Amen. And then Pastor Shamika Latte Oliver, the founder of Women Who Lead Connect. As you know, she just recently birthed a baby and she's birthed the ministry and so many other things she has going. Today, she just needed some time, and we do understand that. She'll be back with us, not to worry. But let's go back to this conversation, and I'm going to allow Minister Durham to pick up because you know him. He's got some questions.
Yes. So, Karen, the last show you talked about having a dream, and then you talked about having an internal flame. I think that is so powerful. And then I want to connect it to where we left off last show. You started sharing how you should have a side hustle and how you should pay yourself. And I want you to share, because you talked about how you are instilling that entrepreneurial mindset in your children, but how did that originate in you? Where did you get your entrepreneurial spirit from? And how does that connect to the dream and the eternal flame?
I really believe that that came from my parents, because my mom, even though in the medical field, and she always ran things. Even as a nurse back in the day, she was doing stuff that surgeons were doing. She was the head nurse and was in charge of this unit and that unit. And you're talking about, a woman that went to medical school, in the 50s, you know what I'm saying, the 60s, a Black woman, a young Black woman. And she actually went to school in Boston, of all places. So,
Wow.
she was that one that said, why work is hard with all the sweat, blood, and tears for somebody else? If you're going to do that and you're going to put that much time and energy into something, why can't it be something that you dreamt about? Something that you always wanted to do. And so she instilled that in me, even as a young girl. I mean, she was pushing me out there, if you could believe I was an introvert. Can you believe that, Irene? I was an introvert. And she would put me like Girl Scouts, modeling class, bowling leagues, she put me sports, track, cheerleading. She made sure that I was doing something in the choir as a baby, that I was out front. She pushed me out front. It was like, no, your confidence level, you can do anything you want to do. So I took that as a person that was always different anyway. I was always different as a child. And it was kind of hard growing up being different because, kids can be cruel. But every time something happened, I remember her saying to me, that's because you're different and God has a plan for you. And kids don't understand. And you just keep going, baby.
That's just a perfect segue because as we as I flipped and I went through your book, and you fell in love, um, and this perfect home. And when I saw you, and Karen and I have known each other for years, and
Mhm.
I would have said Karen had the perfect life, and the perfect family, the perfect all these things. Nothing happens to Karen. Everything is going just sunshine and roses, as to say. And
Ugh.
yet here in your book, you talk about, this cancer, you talk about your marriage, and you talk about this cancer diagnosis. Share with us, and not being able to work for a number of months, and the prognosis for you.
Well, I can tell you that, I would have never thought, let's start with the marriage. I would have never thought that I would be single after 34 years of marriage. But, you have to look at it, the big picture. And the big picture is that God had other plans.
Mhm.
And I had to go through the ups and the downs and the depression and the anxiety and, not being able to get up out the bed and, having, the children come and pray over me in bed because I couldn't get out the bed, and just kind of slap me out of it to say, you're not doing this anymore. And I had to be transparent because we as Black women, especially, who take care of everything in the household, and we are trying to keep the family together, I figured if I'm transparent to say, it's okay to fall, because once you understand that life does not end with your situation, there is something that is waiting for you that is so much better than what you could possibly even imagine, because God's got it worked out. So I had to be as transparent as I possibly could. And then, after getting through that and, all the different surgeries that I had, like I had an emergency surgery because they found a blood clot. And I was like, what? They ran me into surgery for that. They were like, if this thing bursts, you're gone. And so I said, okay, God, all this stuff is happening for a reason. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever it is, I'm gonna roll with it. I'm just gonna do what you want me to do, because at the end of the day, I can't fight it. At the end of the day, he has the final say of what happens, but going to the cancer, 2 years prior to me actually getting the diagnosis, I knew something wasn't right. I just knew something wasn't right. And that was a lesson learned for me, that when you know in your heart, when you know the higher power is telling you something, even if the doctor is telling you it's nothing there, you got to keep moving with it. You have to keep moving with it. So technically, I had this terminal disease for 2 years in my body.
Wow.
And the only time that the doctor actually woke up was when I was in so much pain that I couldn't function. And that was in December of 2019. By January of 2020, I couldn't even lift my head up off the bed. I literally was dropping to the floor, crawling to the bathroom, not making it. And thank God that the kids came back home to help me with this. So I ended up with a walker and a cane because multiple myeloma, it's a blood-bone disease. And so for those 2 years that my primary was just ignoring me, this stuff was literally eating through my bones. So it literally ate through my femur bone and my collarbone. So even now, I go and I have bone treatments because it's just this type of thing. But when I tell people that I had cancer, they say, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, don't be sorry. It was like a blessing. This book came out of the cancer. So January, I was literally on my deathbed. I started writing this book in March of 2020. I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't move. I couldn't literally do anything else. So that was God's way of saying, it's time to be still. it's time for us to actually have a conversation about, the things that you are going to do. And I'm telling you, with, all the chemo and, all the stuff that, you got to go through and all that, it's okay. Because now I end up talking to cancer patients. Now I end up talking to people who, are really so depressed and so at a place where they just want to give up. And, I get phone calls from strangers because of the book that just want to talk about, my journey and the doctors and the holistic doctor that I go to. And thank God for her, because I really do believe that I'm here because she definitely gave me natural things to kind of counteract the chemo. So that's how I actually got to the point where, I talked to a couple of people about the book. Should I write it? I'm not really a writer, but, God said, yes, you are, and you're going to write. And it was a healing place for me to do that. So
can you talk? So someone heard you say cancer is a blessing, and they said, whoa, what is she talking about? And clearly you said the book came, was birthed in that process. But can you take us through just the process of being able to see how pain helps us in our purpose, how we can get strength in every tear, and how we can get patience when we are in tumultuous situations? Can you speak to that? Like, what did that take for you to center yourself and focus on that, and then live in that growth and live in that development that took place?
a friend of mine actually woke me up. He actually said, God knew the right person to give this illness to, because he knew you were a fighter. He knew that you were going to turn this thing into a testimony. He knew that you were going to be a mouthpiece for what people can do to fight this nasty disease. He knew that you were going to sing from the chandeliers, basically talking about just because you have cancer is not a death sentence. Mm-hmm. Even if the doctors say it's terminal, because what I have is terminal. So it's like when you can't, if I didn't tell you that I had cancer, you wouldn't know. Mm-hmm. So I'm that vessel that God is like, she is an example of what can happen if you just truly believe. But we have to be smart about believing too. We still have to take the right actions, and you still have to, we know our bodies. So yeah, the doctors are telling you that you need to do X, Y, and Z. But I'm saying to my doctors, and I have three, I have an oncologist, a cancer doctor, and a holistic doctor. And the cancer doctor and the oncologist will tell me what I need to do. And I turn it around and I ask them questions, and I'm like, no, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So knowing what I want to do, knowing how I need to continue to live, what are my options? And it kind of blew them away, because they're like, you're the only person that we've dealt with ever. When I go to the oncologist centers, and they're like, you're the only person that says, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. Because I kind of know my body. I kind of look at how the chemicals react to my body. And I'm in constant contact with my holistic doctor. So she knows every chemical that they put me on so that it can counteract it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. We as humans literally take what the doctors say as God.
Mm-hmm. It's gospel, right?
Right. And we don't realize that that actually is killing us. Mm-hmm. So we have to kind of take the responsibility on our own, the responsibility of being able to live healthy and we do the research and ask questions and get other options and other opinions. And most people don't do that, especially if they give you a cancer diagnosis and say that you're terminal. So now everybody wants to know, well, how long you have to live. That wasn't no question. That was not a question. That wasn't a question at all. It was more or less, let me get another opinion. And that's why I went to the holistic doctor. And she counteracts pretty much a lot of the stuff that they say. But then that's not what they consider medicine, right? Because it's natural. But if you think about it, our ancestors, they didn't have cancer, right? They didn't. They lived off of the earth. So something is coming, that something is got to be really true about that. And it actually does work. So
I like that. You got to take charge of your situation. We got to remember that doctors are practicing medicine. So don't just go to one doctor and just take their word for everything that they give you. So I like it. Take charge. But I want to go back to what you said about the cancer being a blessing. And you said someone said to you that God knew who he was giving this situation to. And I don't want viewers to miss that, because we all experience tribulations. Jesus told his disciples, you're going to have tribulations. So he knew what's ahead of us. But God knows what we are going through, what we are about to go through. And he gives us things that we can handle. He gives us things that he's already poured oil in us for us to handle. And the thing is, in our mind, we don't think we can do it, because whatever God brings us to is going to stretch us. It's going to take us out of our comfort zone. It's going to require us to depend upon him.
Right.
We just have to have that mindset that, okay, this storm is hitting me, but I know I can handle it because God is giving it to me. And if he's giving it to me, he's going to give me all that I need to make it through it. I love that. And I just wanted to make sure that no one missed that. So I wanted to reiterate that point.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been, and actually I've been on, several TV, radio, podcast shows, and that's been a controversy. Like, what did she just say? That cancer was a blessing? What? I'm like, you have to understand, that's my stance. I'm taking it from my situation. This is coming from Karen Baker. That may not be your situation. That's my situation. And I would be a different person today if I look back at 2019, 2020 with the pandemic. If I did not get cancer, my life would be totally different. I wouldn't have had as much time as I had with God, because literally he stopped me in my tracks. I literally could not move by myself. So I had lots of time to go in my prayer closet. I had lots of time to think about how much information I was going to put in this book. And that's where the financial tips came in after every chapter, to give that information away. That would not have happened if I didn't have cancer. I would not have been able to speak to cancer patients about what was going on if I didn't get the cancer. I actually have gotten some really good friends who now are going towards remission in cancer because of the book. The contacts that I've gotten because of the book is because of the cancer. So when I say it's a blessing to me, it's a blessing.
Yeah, and I get it. And I understand why people struggle with it, because as humans, and this is going to take us to emotions, but before we get to emotions, as human, we see trouble and we want to run away, but we have to understand that we grow through adversity.
Yep.
You grow through struggle. If you are, I like strength training, so I lift weights. The way you grow, the way your muscles grow is they tear first. It's a lot of pressure. And so we grow through these situations. And if you, whoever you are, if you think back to just challenging times of your life and how you got through it, and just think of everything that you got once you came out of it. So many people, and I've heard many testimonies of cancer victors over cancer, that they didn't realize as they was going through it, that the strength that they were gaining, the strength when they went through the process after it was over, they was like, wow, I did not know that I was strong. But all the time I had people, affirming me, saying, no, you're strong, you walking through this and you carrying this well. So we grow through adversity. And that's why we cannot be afraid of tension. That's why we cannot be afraid of trouble and trials, because it's an opportunity. When it comes, look at it as an opportunity and figure out how are you going to attack it and how are you going to depend on God to see you through it, because we cannot do it on our own. We cannot do it on our own, but God takes us through it and he brings us out stronger. So
Definitely.
I appreciate that so much. So I want to ask you, because you mentioned the last show about emotions. And so emotions is where a lot of people get in trouble, is where a lot of people lose the way because they're no longer in control. It's the emotions that take control. So just thinking back on all of your experiences, how were you able to handle the emotions and to respond in a healthy way, and in fact ending up mastering your emotions and not having your emotions to master you?
Well, I'm going to tell you that it's a journey of up and down, up and down, up and down. When you let your emotions get the best of you, that is very dangerous, to the point of, that's why I talk about depression and anxiety. I got to a low that I never thought that I would ever get to. And it made me realize that me, as strong as I am, because I know how strong I am, if something or someone or a situation could get me to a place where I just don't want to get up, or I just don't want to eat, or I just, not thinking about tomorrow, that's a place that needs to be discussed and talked about, so that people understand that, one, they're not the only one. And two, in our culture, we've always been taught, well, you go to church, you don't seek outside help. And I'm like, no, when you get to the point where you're in that dark place like that, you really do need to go and get medical help. Someone who can kind of keep you focused on your emotions until you can get them in check. You know what I mean? So that was a very important piece to me, because I really felt like if I could sink that low, anybody could sink that low.
Right.
And when you get to a place like that, you've got to have people around you that, that faith-based people who will pray and will tell you, positive affirmation, whether it's from the Bible or something that they saw on social media, just positivity, around you. You don't need to be around negative folks, negative situations. You don't need to be in stressful situations, because that kind of helps you heal when you're listening to the positive stuff that's going on versus someone that's hitting you with all this negative stuff. So I needed to put that in there so that people understand that that's a part of life's journey. And some people may not have that piece of it, but if you live long enough, there's going to be an emotional roller coaster. It may not be at that level, but you really need to know that there are people, organizations, groups out there that is out there to help you when you get to that place. So I had to bring that up.
Right. Yeah. There's a physical part of our makeup, and we tend to do a good job in general of taking care of that. So we'll go see a doctor for our physical body, but there's also a mental part of our makeup. And a lot of people don't do a good job of taking care of that. So we also need to go and talk to someone. I share with folk all the time, we need to at least see someone at least once a year. Get a check-in, the mental check-in, whether you're doing well or not. Just go and have a conversation with someone. Right. If you're in a relationship, you need to have your relationship do a check-in. Go see a counselor once a year, at least once a year, whether things are good or things are bad. Because sometimes you'll sit in that counselor's office and you'll high-five yourself or your partner and say, okay, I'm doing well. Yeah. And sometimes you'll say, oh, wow, I didn't even know that was there underneath the surface. And so it's very important that we take care of not just our physical bodies, but our mental selves. Because it's all part that makes up God's temple that is us. And we need to do our best to take care of that temple.
You're right.
So thank you so much for putting that in the book. We need to keep the conversation going. So I want to, as we're coming close to a close to the end of our time, I want to have you to share about your business and, to give contact information and whatever you want to share.
Okay. Well, the business is Casey Baker and Associates, and we ensure financial wellness in a nutshell. And it just depends on where the individual is, the company is, the executive is. We work with any and everyone, corporate, government, it doesn't matter. Whatever your financial goals are, we are here to help you get to that place and strategize to get a plan that's designed specifically for your personal situation. I have a team all across the country. I have 2 offices here in the Washington metropolitan area, even though with COVID, I very rarely go into the office, but my agents go into the office. So I have one here at the Harbor and one in Tyson's. And so we work with everyone. I'm licensed in all 50 states. So I have customers all across the country. It doesn't matter what your situation is when it comes down to money. Like I said, we all need to sit down and speak to a financial planner, a financial advisor, the right financial planner or the right financial advisor. So my website is www.caseybakerandassociates.com. So that's www.caseybakerandassociates.com. And my number is 1-866-586-9522. So that's 1-866-586-9522. And we are here to help you. You can get the book on Amazon. So Live, Love, Reset, God's Plan, The Perfect Person to Get Cancer from Adversity to Prosperity. You can get it from Amazon or really any bookstore. They'll order it for you if they don't have it in the store. And we're here to help. We're here to help you get to your financial freedom, your financial goal, generational wealth, leaving a legacy. That's what we show you how to do.
Yes, generational wealth. That's what we want. So I want to give you the opportunity just to give one. You've already shared so many nuggets, so many rich things. If you want to give a final thought, final nugget or a few to the audience as we close.
My main thing is, again, to make sure that whatever you're doing, that you're paying yourself first. Making sure that your money is working for you while you sleep. If you're paying yourself first and your money is working for you while you sleep, there's really no reason why you can't go towards that legacy or that generational wealth. It has to start with someone. So why not it be you?
Excellent. Well, here you heard it here at Generationally Speaking, create generational wealth. So we thank you again, Karen. It has been a pleasure. So we in this virtual space and from this COVID-19 induced pandemic. So Zoom, sometimes things go awry. So we lost Reverend Smith a little earlier, but that's okay. God is still good and the message still goes on. So just want to remind everyone to make sure that you remain inspired, that you remain informed, and that you be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We will see you next time.
Amen. Amen.